Hey, I'm Casey Herlihy. This is Unbiased Recovery, sponsored by Meta Addiction Treatment.
I'm Ed LePage, and we're here with Aristotle Nikolaou for part 2 of his story.
Produce.
Number 2.
Yes.
Not number 1.
The second.
Whose story?
Your story.
Okay.
Tell me your story.
Arnie.
Big Earn. All right, so where did we leave off? I think I was
You were up
second time back up in New Hampshire.
Yep. Getting sober.
Yeah, so
Entering recovery.
so the whole time that I was after I'd already been introduced to the step process, and then I kind of fell off and was in a full-blown relapse. That's when it got very, very bad. Living on a couch. And then I remember not having. I'm just gonna do a little
Do you know what type of couch it was?
quick.
Is it a sectional?
Pull out.
So I had a job, believe it or not, screaming dope habit, and I remember not having enough money to put money in my gas tank, so I would walk to work, and it was winter. I feel like this is like a story my mother would tell me.
Did you walk uphill both ways?
She was,
In the snow, no shoes.
in the mountains, I had no shoes, and we had to walk to school.
Did you have crampons on the bottom of your boots?
Yeah, dude, for grip.
Well, what else would they be for?
So, it was bad at this point, and man, I got some grimy stories I gotta tell you.
We're gonna
I can't wait.
He's
We're gonna
probably
need a
heard
part
it.
3 at this point.
Yeah,
We
part
might.
3 for,
We really
for
might.
personal use only.
Dude, if I start getting into some of these stories, anyways,
No one will
whatever.
watch
we
this.
we all have them. Not as
Oh,
good as mine, but
All right,
I got some good
we'll
ones.
swap stories outside after in the Beamski.
all right, as long as you keep your clothes on, we'll be good. So, anyways,
This is going places, folks.
so it was very difficult emotionally going back in the second time. I was a lot more beat up mentally. Like I said, I had a screaming habit at this point. Excuse me. We were going through a finger of heroin in 2-3 days. It just wasn't sustainable anymore, and so I get back into treatment, and I just remember the pain and torture. It wasn't even like the dope sickness. Yeah, I was always dope sick, but I'd been through that before. But it was like this mental anguish.
The emotional aspect of not doing what you want to do with yourself.
Yeah, man, and it was really bad. The whole time I was relapsing, I knew though, at some point when I'm ready, I just got to get back into the steps. I need to finish my 4th step because I hadn't finished it yet. It was very difficult for me.
Like that seed had already been planted.
Without a doubt,
yeah,
dude.
yeah.
Without a doubt. Like 500% been planted. And I just knew, okay, I know I can get well if I get back into the step process. Like that was a guarantee in my mind, but that wasn't nearly anything to get me to stop. Do you know what I mean?
It's not enough.
No. So I remember getting back to this place and just begging these guys. I was close with the guys that were running it, and I was legit begging them to allow me to take a 3rd step prayer again.
Yep.
And they were like, no. I'm like, hell no. I'm like, dude, please. And they're like, no. And I was wearing a hood, and all day long I was in tears, just crying all day. Like the what I did, what I had ruined, my everything. I can't even explain or even put it really down on paper the torturous horror I was going through. And I truly believe it was more, it was mental, but it was like spiritual pain. It was
It's like hard to describe
dude, I cannot describe it.
Yeah.
It was just,
until you feel it.
yeah, it was absolute
and I mean,
misery.
I think like the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous would explain it as restless irritability and discontentedness, the bewilderments that you see.
The 4 horsemen.
Yeah.
Like that sort of like terror, like I don't know exactly, but like if you felt it, like I think that's what brings us as drug addicts and alcoholics together.
Yeah.
And like going into the particulars of our story, into like the aspects of like, well, this guy ate out of a dumpster, and this guy did this much heroin, and this
Right.
guy drank that. Like, those are the things that separate us.
Right.
Right.
But that emotional or spiritual torture, or however you label it, is really what like binds us together.
Yeah, like
you know,
to have other people be like, I felt the same way.
Right.
Because you think
Exactly.
you're all alone.
Right.
I remember like getting into treatment and like being like, thank God, because like I really just thought like
It was just me.
I was losing it.
Yeah.
Like completely, and like there was no hope whatsoever.
Utterly hopeless.
Yeah. And I mean, I was just so lucky to be back at this place because I did I did a lot of harm to the guys running this place, and they put a lot of trust and faith in me and had me working there. And, you know, I did them dirty. I did. And they didn't want me to come back.
Yeah.
And they had a vote, and one of the guys really pulled for me to go back. And I remember when I first walked in there, one of the guys running the show was like, dude, I don't want you here.
Were you petrified to go back? Or like
Oh,
did you
yeah.
feel like a sense of relief when you
No,
got there?
no. I was petrified, but you know, maybe a little bit of a sense of relief. But I knew I would have to walk through torturous amounts of shit from these guys.
Yeah, yeah.
From one in particular, who, you know, again, he saved my life. And you know, I knew in group he would be pointing me out to all these
Yeah.
other people and talking
Using you
about,
as an example.
oh my
yeah, all
God! And
sorts
I
of
just
stuff.
like I was just at the first few days I was legit just in tears constantly, so I didn't care. I wasn't sleeping. I didn't care, and you know, even till the day that I left, he was like, "You're not gonna get well. You're not gonna get well."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Fuck you. I am." You know. So, anyways, eventually, after like the fourth day, I went into the office begging them to allow me to take a third step. They're like, all right, fine, whatever, go ahead. So I just went off into their little chapel by myself with the big book, sat down quietly, prayed and cried a lot. And I had a pretty, I was in there for at least an hour, hour and a half. I said a third step and just kept praying. And you know, it was... that's when I felt a huge sense of relief knowing that, okay, I'm back in this game.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do it again and I'm gonna finish it.
You're getting into recovery.
and
You're gonna
yeah.
make it work.
Took
And-
some sort of action.
Yeah, and the determination was there for me to continue on with the fourth step and just kind of plow through
Yep.
it. And
Well, and that's something too. Like, regardless of how somebody gets sober, right? Like what somebody's recovery looks like that determination is like really what's needed, right?
Like no reservations or like
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like to a point.
Yeah, not even like I guess sort of no reservations, like, but that's really like AA language,
Right.
right? So like I would just sort of say like, just as like, I am going to do what is asked of me.
Yeah.
In order to get it, like, to make this thing work.
I'm gonna
right?
finally listen to someone else opposed to just like thinking that I have all the answers.
Right.
yeah, so I mean, I did that. I cracked open my notebooks and just had one of the guys look it over real quick to make sure everything looked good, and they gave me a date of when I had to be finished by.
Yep.
And I banged out everything I had to, and did a lot of meditating, a lot more prayer. I had some really amazing experiences during those times of prayer and meditation. And I don't know if you guys want me to get into them or not, but you know, whatever.
Yeah, do whatever you want.
I mean,
But like, so I guess, so you're right in this fourth step, right?
Yeah.
You're sort of on this time crunch. You're actively taking the suggestions that are people that you trust are willing to give you, right?
trying to go above and beyond them.
Yeah, and I think that's like an earmark of recovery, right? Is
Sure.
that like we're actively listening to those people that we've actually like selected. It's this interesting thing, right? Where like people like sort of need to like listen to other people, but like we also get to like choose who those other people are that we listen to.
Yeah.
Right? Like
you kind of find like a trust within someone or like you feel connected to them for whatever reason.
yeah, exactly. So like, and you're doing this work, right? Like your path is the 12 steps, right? You're writing this 4-step, and like I guess like, what does it look like when you like complete this thing?
So the day I was supposed to read and do my 5th step, I still hadn't finished my fear inventory or sex inventory.
Okay.
But I can remember getting into these these writing sessions for like 2-3 hours where I would just, read the prayer at the top of the page that I would write. God, help me to see those things that block me from you and others. And my hand, I would get in this amazing, and I'm sure a lot of people have experienced it. It was almost, it became academic, but it was like I didn't have to think. My hand was just moving to get this stuff done, right?
You weren't like overanalyzing it or
no.
It's almost like when you like
just,
read a couple of pages of a book and you're like, "What? I didn't read. I don't remember anything I read."
Dude,
But you're like, just, your hand just
cranking away. It was crazy.
It's not that you're not thinking, but like it's almost unconscious.
Yes.
Right.
It's natural.
Yeah.
It's like when you're driving on the highway and you go in like 3 exits and you're like, I have no idea how I got here. It's different, but you know what I'm talking about.
That would be mindlessness.
Yeah.
So
Not mindful.
I have no idea how I got here tonight, guys.
I actually drove by here on the way because I was doing
I bet
that.
you did.
I was just
wondering why you
driving,
came
and
here,
yeah. And then I put the joint out, and I was like, "Fuck, dude, I missed the pull in."
He's joking, folks.
It's okay. I thought we could smoke weed after a certain amount of time.
I think that's the rule.
Okay, cool.
It says that in any recovery.
That's a joke. So I finished, right? I'm super excited. I'm dead nervous to read all this, right? My deepest, darkest thoughts and secrets, so to speak. But I had a time set for, I think, like 5:30 or 6 to start reading this thing at night to the guy that originally took me through the book. And I'm throwing my stuff on the floor, dude. What's wrong with you?
I didn't touch your stuff.
My weed's in there.
Yeah, dude.
Brings his plaid to look tough.
So
I'm a lumberjack.
here we
Look
go.
at all this wood.
Oh, yeah.
You got cord of wood in the back of the beam ski?
Oh my God. I'm trying to be nice to you, dude, because we're on video, and that's why, like, you know what I
Casey's got
mean?
his cutoffs on.
I know,
these are
yeah,
sick,
you're looking real tough with those, buddy.
Thank you.
Did good. I love you, buddy.
I
I'm
love
trying
you
to
too,
be
man.
nice.
You can be
camera.
mean to me. It's
no,
okay.
I don't want to be. I do that enough off camera.
You've been working out?
Oh, God help me. So
The veins are popping on the forearm.
they are. I'm just vascular, dude. That's good genetics. Good genes.
have
Unlike
that.
good genes.
I don't have the
Unlike
genetic
Casey.
Good genes.
Unlike Casey's.
Yeah, my genetics are.
No, I meant your genes.
Yeah.
But. All right, so day comes.
So you read this thing.
Yeah, I'm sitting down to read this thing, and I finish. 5-6 hours go by, and
It took 5 or 6 hours to read it, or
to
5
read.
Okay.
It took about, I think it was 6 hours. We put it right at 6 hours because we started at 5. It might have been a little bit more by the time I think we started reading. By midnight, I was done, a little after midnight. And my sponsor said, okay, here's a copy of the big book. Here's a flashlight. Here's a candle. Go out to that cabin. These cabins had no electricity. He said, go out to that cabin. Told me the specific pages to read from.
Burn some wood out of the back of your car.
Chop some wood down first.
Obviously.
And then take care of it. So Jesus, dude. We're gonna have 5 of these sessions. You know that, right?
Yeah, well, we're doing it on purpose.
Shut your mouth. Shut your mouth.
Hey, shut your mouth when you're talking to me.
We're going to spread these out over the course of
month and a
years.
half.
but hopefully we're done with the podcast altogether.
Yeah.
So I go into the cabin. I had a specific, I had to read certain part of the book until I got up to the 7-step prayer. And, and I remember there was one specific thing that I didn't put on my inventory, right? That I just didn't want to tell my sponsor or anyone for that matter. So I'm sitting down in this cabin and I just had the most freeing experience I've ever had in my life, right? I'm 3, maybe 24. I don't know how old I was. And I have never felt relief like this before. I had never felt this sense of freedom, and this sense that I might actually be okay, right? Emptiness. My mind was empty. I'm sitting in this room, and I crack open the book, and I have the flashlight, and I start trying to read, and I shit you not, guys, I could not read. It was like the words were just all blurred together. I swear on my sobriety, on anything, I could not fucking read. That one thing that I was gonna take to the grave with me was like
It was blocking you.
it was blocking my vision, dude.
Yeah.
It was blocking me, but like,
It was like, you have to get this out.
dude, I could not see. Malaka, do you understand when I
Yeah.
tell you I couldn't
Yeah,
see
yeah,
the
yeah,
words?
yeah.
I was
Don't
panicked.
ever, don't ever speak to me in Greek.
Dude. Like the
Just
seriousness, like the seriousness of this, dude.
Yeah.
I couldn't
Yeah,
read.
that's wild.
So I closed the book. I'm like, what the fuck do I do? I light up a cigarette. I'm like, I don't know what I should do. What's gonna happen? What's he gonna laugh at me or make fun of me if I tell him, or think I'm a sicko or whatnot? And after 10, 15 minutes of going
Wrestling
back
with
and
it.
forth, yeah. I run across this, the open field. I bang on this dude's door, and he opens his door, and he's like, he just jumped out of the shower. And he's got a towel wrapped around him, and he's like, dude, what's up? And I just blurted it out, and he's like, all right, are you done? I go, yeah. And he just slammed the door in my face, and I'm like, fucking A, right?
Yeah.
Beautiful, right?
Yeah. Because you're probably petrified.
Oh my God.
And then
Yeah.
you find out that no one cares.
Did not
It's
care
not
at
even a big
all.
deal
Yep,
at all.
Yep.
Nobody gives a shit.
Yeah,
Nope.
they're like, cool, man. Like,
Yep.
sweet.
Yep. And yeah, and so I went back into the room and I was able to read, and I said my 7-step prayer, and I sat quietly for an hour, kind of contemplating everything that I just done, and did a bunch of prayers, and yeah, it was unbelievable having a clear mind with only one thought in my head at any given moment, and nothing coming from outside of my head, or I had an attention span that focused.
You previously
that-
didn't have.
Never.
Well,
no.
it's crazy. So it's like you're describing like have an empty mind. Like for some reason, this line just blurred into my head when you said that. Like an empty mind, but like a full heart.
Yeah,
Right. Like so, it's
sure.
like, you know what I mean. Like so, like I feel like a lot of us when we're actively using drugs and alcohol, like we feel this internal emptiness inside.
Oh yeah.
But like our mind is
Just
yeah, like
constant,
like a little
insanity.
hamster on a wheel.
Yeah, yeah.
With like butterflies and whatever, just like
All sorts of stuff.
constantly like distracting us.
Yeah.
Because like we're constantly coming up with a scheme. We're constantly figuring out like what's the next like
What am I gonna have to do to
exactly.
make sure that I feel
so
alright?
it's like that's gone, but also at the same time like that internally emptiness is like filled.
100%.
Which like I think that's what most recovery programs aim to get you to.
Yeah,
right?
you're like
Right?
finally left with just yourself, and you feel okay with it.
Yeah.
And a sense of accomplishment, but not. I didn't really accomplish it. God accomplished it through me, so I wasn't like taking credit. Do you know what I mean? But it was like, wow, I
that's
overcame
it.
this huge hurdle.
That's an interesting thing, though, because I was talking about with somebody this morning,
Yeah.
right? This idea that like, and I think AA really has this idea more so than other recovery programs, where it's like, no, I didn't do this, right? But like,
I think we've talked about that.
I think
before,
that
too.
that's bullshit.
I'm not saying I didn't do it. I'm saying I did it with the enormous help from God and
enough.
through my
Yeah.
prayer
Well,
and
I
meditation
think
and
that
like.
people in early recovery get this mindset where like they can't take credit for any of it, and
Yeah.
it's like, well, that's like it sort of diminishes the amount of effort and the amount of willingness that one needs to demonstrate in their recovery in order to like gain that and keep it.
I think a lot of that
You know what I mean?
Yeah, but it comes down to humility too. I wasn't like, if someone's like, "Great job, Ari, you finished it, you did great," and I'm like, "No, I didn't." Like, because I'm trying. You're trying to be
You're trying-
humble.
yeah,
and you're
yeah.
trying to because like.
I know what you're saying.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
do you know where I'm coming from? Where it's almost
100%,
like this
dude,
self-deprecating.
100%.
Sort of
The way I
Absolutely.
look at it is like my needed strength or power. Like I didn't have it. I couldn't do it just on my own.
Exactly.
I agree
Right.
with you.
So I got that power from like trying to find a higher power. You know what I
Fair
mean?
enough.
That carried me through it.
Right.
But like,
But I
guess
still took the
Where
action.
Yes.
that's my point,
Right.
right? Is like there you keep on saying like I needed to try, like because like there is, I think the other, if you go to completely to the other side, right, you get into this realm of like, there's some sort of like more fundamental Christian groups that
Yeah.
would have you believe that like almost putting effort into your faith would diminish the strength
The actual
of
faith.
of God.
Yeah.
Whereas like AA and other recovery programs that follow spiritual lines really do require a great deal of effort upon the participant's part.
It's like when you're like driving up, like that saying of like like God take the wheel or whatever. It's like, no, I'm still driving the car.
Yeah,
it's
I
like,
need to still hold on
but
to the
you're
wheel.
guiding me to like make the correct decisions.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't. Yeah, I get what you're saying, because for me, that fourth step was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life.
Yeah.
If God did all of it, or God,
It wouldn't have been hard.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So, yeah, I mean,
There was like some source of something else. Because when I look back at it, like the action that you do need to take, it's like I couldn't have just. I had no self-will in that. Like you know what I mean? Like
To
I
a
never
degree.
finished anything in my life.
But like I think that
Right.
there's also like a degree of, when you're in it, especially like if you're in a treatment program, the ability to be surrounded by other people doing this
Yeah.
creates momentum, right? I think that there's the aspect of listening to other people. I think that there's a lot of humility in actually just being willing to put the action in.
Yeah.
And that's humble within itself, right? Just being like, you know what, like, whatever sort of program of action that you're going to enter into, just being like, you know what, I'm going to take the action of the program of
Right.
action that I'm in.
Yeah. I'm gonna do it.
yeah. So, one of my biggest concerns, also, I think, one of my biggest fears going into this fifth step and reading it all, was that what was I going to be like afterwards, right? Because being taken through the book and hearing these guys talk that I really admired and looked up to as, what I wanted to be, how I wanted to be sober, how I wanted my life to be. And I was under this impression that my personality was going to change.
Yeah, I was too.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
They're like you have to reinvent yourself, become a completely new person.
Dude,
I'm like, I don't want to do that.
I was petrified about that, and I'm thinking, is people still gonna like me? I mean, not like anyone did anymore, because I friggin' tortured and ruined. I ruined every relationship. Right, I ruined everything. But was I still gonna be? Funny?
Ari.
And and I remember the next day, I go into my sponsor's room and we're hanging out, and then and his friend came in the room too. One of the other guys that ran the facility, the one that just kind of hated me and was shitting on me all the time. He was like, "So you finally did it, huh?" I'm like, "Yeah, I did." And I'm like, "Greg, I got a question, man. It's really like killing me. I need to ask you." And it really was bothering me. It was, like I said earlier, this whole thing of like, who am I going to be? And I had my really nice car at home that I had for like 5 or 6 years, and it was in the garage.
What
It
was
was
it?
like, it was an M3,
Nice.
95 M3. And that was like my baby, dude.
Yeah.
I got it in like 1999,
Yeah, E36.
Yeah, dude. Did so much stuff to it. And, I hadn't
Make
driven
that noise
it.
again?
Dude, I hadn't driven it in like 2 years, weirdo. So
Okay.
Was it a 5-speed or a 6-speed?
it was actually automatic, unfortunately.
Oh,
So my
Well,
concern was like,
shortcomings.
am I gonna have to sell it to be this like different person, or
Yeah.
to,
What am I gonna have to drive now?
dude?
I know what you mean.
I'm a driver. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that was a part of
part of
me.
your life.
If I had to, if this guy said to me, "Ari, you need to sell that car," I would have been like, done. It sucks, but okay, I'll do it.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you meant you would have given up.
Not doing it.
So I asked
I will
him.
not. I draw the line at that.
I asked him. I'm like, dude. So like, and what kind of person? What's gonna happen to me? What am I gonna be like? Like, do I have to sell my car, dude? Like, I was torn up about this. I really was. And he looks at me like dead serious, and I'm like, all right, good. Give me some of that fucking. Give me a great answer
That
here.
heat.
Let me hear the fire. And he looks at me and he goes, you know what, Ari? And I'm like, what, dude? He goes, one day at a time. And him and the other dude start dying laughing. I'm like,
Were you like,
fucking,
fuck?
you guys are assholes. Like, are you serious? And they're like, get the fuck out of here. And like, so I walked out of the room and I'm like, well, what am I gonna
Now what?
do?
Do I have to sell it? Can I keep it on?
You know what I mean?
Did you keep the car?
Yeah, hell yeah, dude. But there was all these preconceived notions for me of what it meant to lead a spiritual life. What was I gonna have to do?
I think everybody sort of gets this idea, or I shouldn't say everybody, but a lot of people get this idea that get introduced to, the 12 steps, to different like mindfulness, sort of recovery-based programs and whatnot that, like, they're going to have to sit and meditate and live in Tibet on a mountain and wear a robe and be celibate for the rest of their lives.
Yeah.
And I've yet to meet anybody that's needed to do that.
I know some people that have tried that after going through the steps and ended up relapsing because they focused too much on that instead of the basics of the,
Right.
of the
Yeah,
step
instead of,
process.
like, actually the program of action
Right.
that
Yeah.
got them sober.
And they ended
I'll
up
go back to the
relapsing,
basics. Yeah.
and you know.
So, you were at this place, right?
Yep.
And you read. And how long after that did you go home?
I was there for 1 month, my second time back, 30 days.
Okay. So
They wouldn't let me stay any longer. I begged them to.
So you went home.
I went home.
And what did that look like?
Back to my parents' house. Absolute fear and terror.
Yeah.
Not
Not the same as when you were going to this place.
No, dude, it wasn't. I mean, I would write fear inventory. I wrote inventory. So I go back home to my mother and father's house, right?
Yep.
After torturing them completely and robbing them of everything.
Decent night's sleep.
Dude, physically, emotionally,
years.
everything. And my father's like, all right, you okay? I'm like, yeah, I think I'm okay, Dad. And, first off, I decided that I need to start being the son that I wasn't,
Yep.
right, to my mother and my father. And what that looked like for my dad specifically was me going out for lunch with him every day,
Okay.
right? So I did that, and it was great. And I was pretty quiet when I went home because I was again.
What'd you get for food?
I had a lot of fears of I don't remember. It was at my buddy's restaurant though, in Beverly, and he ended up he's since changed it to like a newer, nice, fancy schmancy place. I'm trying to think what I ate. I don't remember. Sorry, buddy.
Was it Greek food?
No.
Oh.
So.
What's that Greek
Here
cheese
we go.
stuff?
Jesus. Saganaki.
What's that?
Saganaki.
That's the good stuff.
What
Yeah,
is
it's
it?
the
Is it
best.
just the cheese, or is it
It's
like,
like
a?
flame broiled, like toasty,
Block of
crispy
cheese, and it's
Oh,
the best thing
and
you'll
you
ever
like
eat
dip
in your life.
something in it?
No, you just
You
eat
just
it with
eat it?
like a pita bread or put
Oh, yeah,
lemon
and
on
you
it.
just put
eat
lemon
it.
on it.
Yeah.
Oh, that sounds.
I
Really
have
good.
some at my house,
There you go.
dude.
Are we
I
going-
order it like every week now at the store.
So good.
What are we doing?
My
after
kids
this?
love it, dude. It's straight fire. Oh, that's what we ate in Florida. We got
Yeah,
like two
exactly.
of those
Yes.
things. Yeah, that shit's good, right?
That's what I pictured when you said you went out to eat with your dad.
No, I didn't have
Eating
any of that
tzatziki
good
sauce.
stuff.
I don't think I
Fucking-
need any more cheese, but
No, goes right to your.
can I have some cheese,
Cheese,
Ari?
please.
It goes right
Goes right
to
to my hips.
goes
Yeah.
right goes right to your nipples.
You got cheesy nips, bud.
That's a condition.
Yeah.
All right,
It's a condition on its own.
So you're home and you're eating
I'm
cheese.
home. I'm eating cheese, and
Too much cheese.
dude, I'm petrified, right? So my father's like, "Listen," he goes, "You don't. I'm not forcing you to go back to work. Take your time. I know you got to try and find some meetings and."
So
do your
it seems
thing
like
and-
Dad had more knowledge this time.
I
Versus
mean-
like the first time he's like giving you a beer, and then this time it's like.
Well, that was years
Right, no, I
prior.
understand.
I think so. When I first came home, I think he, and they told me this. They said, "Ari, people are going to visually see a change in you, and not in the sense that." Okay, you're sunken in face and 130 pounds, and now you have weight put back on and your face filled out. They're going to see a different change in you,
Yeah.
right?
It's in your eyes. I know it
Dude.
sounds weird, but
Listen, and I'll tell you guys this story. I had this experience, but let me finish with my father. I came home, and he's like, I'm just happy I have my son back.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, okay, cool. And,
Yeah.
and he was as if... It was as if nothing ever happened. It was as if I never tortured him and did all these horrible things to him. And still to this day, I do not know how he did that. And I do not know if I could do that with my kids. If one of my kids went down the wrong path in that sense. I don't
Sort
know.
of like compartmentalize it, put it in its box, put it in the corner. And move on.
Dude, I can do that with certain things in my life. I got that from my father. But with something like this, like the pain I put this man through, I mean... Dude, if one of my kids did that to me, I don't know if I could, the
Handle
forgiveness
it?
would
Yeah.
bounce back like that.
Yeah.
So amazing man, my father, my mother too, for putting up with my father. No, I tortured my poor mother, man. Jeez.
yeah.
We all do. So
Addicts or not.
yeah. So
Yeah.
so I'm kind of surrounded by this fear, and I'm doing everything I have to do, and I'm writing inventory, resentment inventory, and fear inventory every single day.
Yep.
Just because.
So you're taking the action that you're supposed to be taking.
1,000,000%,
right?
and I'm going into the family business a little bit here and there for a couple hours, just super nervous, not knowing anyone working there, and here I am coming out of the blue and trying to feel it out. And every weekend I would go back up to the facility in New Hampshire because I was friends with the guys that run it, and they'd be like, yeah, come up this weekend. I'd go up there and just hang with them.
So they like you now.
Just to be around the community.
Dude, they kind of like me now. That one dude still, I don't think was,
He wasn't.
he didn't have
wasn't
to.
pumped.
He did not have to be.
Right.
But, we'd all kind of shit on each other, and they'd all kind of shit on me.
That's my favorite part of all of this.
And it was...
I'm serious.
I know. I loved that.
Yeah.
We would just I would die laughing with these guys, and we would hang out, and they didn't see me as like their equal yet. I was still like, oh, hey, what's up, Ari? Come on. But
well, Ari's here.
But like I was getting there.
Drug dust them.
I was dude, I was getting there to the point that like, you know
You're
what I mean?
friends.
Yeah, man. And I really valued that. I don't know what I would have had if I didn't have that going up there on the weekends, and then I remember the one kid, one guy that was running the show that, was giving me such a hard time in the beginning, would reach out to me like, dude, why don't you come up this weekend? There's a guy up here from, near your area, and he seems like a good kid. I want you to meet him and talk to him and kind of, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So then they started to have that type of faith and trust in me where they'd call me and I'd go up there and meet someone that was coming back home, because I'd been home for a little bit already, and, so...
Like, giving you that opportunity to help someone.
Yeah, and in doing that, one of these guys that came home, I became real tight with, and we started up our own little AA meeting.
Yep.
The Lynn Chapter 2 group. Big shout out to Jay Cutt. And he was a huge part of my sobriety and my life, and yeah, man, I mean, and then that kind of just kicked off this whole little... home base, if you will, in Massachusetts, people coming out of this facility that, that was like, and I know you guys will understand, it was kind of way before the 16 community. That was like the OG, like,
like where that came from.
Yeah,
Yeah,
really
so,
was.
I mean, like what you're describing is like almost this, like, it's interesting because Casey and I went to different colleges, but we were actually in the same fraternity, right? And people oftentimes, will give people that were in fraternities a hard time, like, how could you play, like, just sort of ribbing on each other about that. But, like, there is this, like, fraternal nature to people that are in a 12-step program that is very sort of similar. Mm-hmm. Because it's not only that, like, not only are you friends, but, like, not only have you gone through the same sort of...
like, action,
like... I guess for a fraternity, it'd be pledging or hazing.
Yeah, like the...
But you've gone through the you've gone through the torture of active addiction.
You all went through the same thing.
And you've gone through the work to get better.
Right.
And it's like, there is this camaraderie that comes out of that, that sort of like... It's pretty unique, being around other people that are, like, getting vulnerable and, sharing about themselves. And, like, whether that vulnerable aspect of them or not, like, that they've shown that. That they've walked the same path,
right?
So to say.
Yeah.
So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, man. And like with you guys, back then, I mean, I made my lifelong friends with a lot of these people that... came through, and but let's go back to the home thing. So I was a little prior to this, before anyone else kind of came down to my area from this facility. I got pointed in the direction of a gentleman through Don Pritz. He gave me this guy's number out of Massachusetts to contact that Jerry Elkins had sponsored, who was in the step process, the way they did it at this facility. And Don Pritz was just awesome. Having the opportunity to meet him and hang out with him, and as was Jerry. And so I called this guy up, and he knew nothing about the facility I was at. And he just said, "Oh yeah, hey, how you doing? Yeah, I run a meeting. Here's when it is. It's a big book not a step study. It was like a big book group."
Yeah.
So it was Thursday night in Newton, I believe. I believe it was Thursday night. So here I am, a month and a half sober, going to this new meeting, scared. And I remember talking to, he wasn't my sponsor at the time, but he played a big role in my sobriety also. He's like, listen, Ari, he's like, you're going to have to go into this meeting, and in order for these guys to take you seriously, you're going to have to bring up an amends story, right? And don't pull any punches. Just do it the way you say it the way you did it, and talk about it. And that way, this guy or these people there will realize that you're not just some, I don't know.
Faker or something.
Well, I don't know. They'll realize that you're kind of like part of the family of.
Part of it.
Yeah.
Right?
So I remember going to this meeting and listened, and the opportunity happened to present itself. They were talking about amends, so I put my hand up and I spoke about my last amends I had just recently made, probably 2-3 days earlier. And, this guy's just looking at me, and I finish, and they're all like, okay, thanks, Ari. And then, the meeting continued. And at the end of the meeting, I'm getting my jacket, getting my shit, and ready to leave. And he pulls me aside. He said, who are you? Where did you go? Like, who taught you how to take steps like that? And, and so I started explaining to him the facility, and I mentioned his sponsor's name, who he hadn't seen in like 20 years, right? And then me and this guy we got a real good relationship, and about 6 months down the line, I ended up inviting this guy. It was two of them, him and his friend, who both had Jerry as a sponsor, up to the place in New Hampshire to meet Jerry, who they hadn't seen in years. So it was really, really cool how it all ended up. And
it's a small world, right? It's like almost like, I don't know how to describe it. You ever hear somebody talk about like a red car theory? That like when you think of a red car, you see them all the time.
Yeah.
Right. So like it's like when you start
Tell us with the Teslas right now.
Yeah. Exactly. But it's like that with alcoholism, with the 12 steps. Like when you sort of like put yourself out there, like I went on this trip, after I'd been sober for like a year and a half, and like I had a hat on that said a treatment center on it, and people are asking me like, oh yeah, like I'm a friend to Bill too, and it's like, it's
everywhere.
It touches everybody, and it's funny that like you just don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. So, again, I keep skipping over this big fear thing I had, though. But I just, I always had this fear of running into someone back when I was back home that would just, pop into the DQ.
Yeah.
I was doing like landscaping outside because we were coming into summertime, and I'm like, what if so-and-so just sees me and drives in, is like, oh, what's up here, dude, here's a couple pills, and throws me a couple OCs, or you know what I mean, like, because that's how it was.
It happens. They're like, oh, good to see you, man.
Yeah, here, dude, here, what's up, where you been, and so I had this big fear every day of kind of running into someone and running into a situation like that, and how I would react. And this guy I really looked up to, again, would always be like, Ari, don't worry, that type of situation will come. And I was always like, well, I kind of want to test out if the step process really works, if God really did remove my alcoholism, my drug addiction, if I'm recovered from the mental obsession like they talk about in the book. And he's like, dude, don't worry, you'll be put in a situation eventually. But I was petrified of that, of just, maybe seeing someone that I forgot to make an amends to that would, want to throw me a vicious beating, or, so as soon as I got home, like...
I have a couple of those.
Yeah.
Not shocked.
Like, the first 2 weeks I got home, I started to bang out as many as I could that were the local ones, in case I ran into one of these people. And, crazy story, one of them actually caught me on the courthouse front steps.
Yeah.
In Salem when I was at court, and pretty big dude. You know who he is.
Yeah, I know the story you're saying.
Yeah, and I hadn't even put him on my amends list. So what happened previously, when I was still a guest at this facility, they allowed me to drive back to Massachusetts with a monitor to make some amends. And the monitor didn't want to drive, so I'm driving the car through downtown Beverly, and I'm at a set of lights. My light turns green. I start to go, and this big truck like pulls in front of me this way and just stops. I'm like, what the hell is this guy doing?
Oh, no.
And, you know, this dude is hanging out the front side of the driver's side window just staring at me. And I'm like, oh, my God. And the girl in the front seat's like, oh, what's the matter, Ari? Who's that? Who's that? And I'm like, shit. And dude,
She's like, what did I get myself into?
Dude.
I'm not equipped for this.
and the
I should
dude
have
pulled
driven.
up. The guy pulls right next to me like this, and he's just staring at me. And I'm like,
Hey, bud.
what's up, dude? And he just kept staring at me and slowly pulled away. And I'm like, oh my God. I thought he was going to get out of the car and throw me a beating.
Yeah.
There was a kid I definitely owed an amends to. I used to be very close with him.
Could he have given you a beating?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I'd like to think
Oh,
not. I like to think not.
Yeah, but
You know, this, whatever.
You
No,
can
I
do
get it.
high kicks though.
I can, you know,
Yeah.
I might have
Can
been
you
able to.
demonstrate one for us?
No, I'll pull a muscle. I might have been able
Pull a
to
hammy.
do something. I don't know if he was junked out at the time. I don't know. Dude, I love you if you're watching. You know who you are.
Can you kick over Casey's head? Do you think?
Yeah, he's like 4'8".
no, I'm not. I'm 5'6" with shoes on.
It's like goes up a
So,
lot.
anyways, dude. So this kid had already threatened me prior to me going away, and then all of a sudden I'm out making amends, and I bump into him, and I'm like, shit, I gotta put him on my amends list. So lo and behold, I'm in court after I'm home for about a month and a half, 2 months, standing on the front courthouse in Salem, smoking a cigarette in between sessions. And I'm just kind of standing there, and I'm praying, I'm smoking a butt, and I just felt this like really big dude kind of looking over my head, standing right next to me, real
Is there a shadow?
real close
You're
to
like,
me. No,
oh, this doesn't feel good.
yeah, it was just like
This
that.
feels uncomfortable.
And I look up, and he's standing there, and he's got a big cast on his arm, and he's like, Ari, you better say something to me right now that's going to keep me from killing you on the front steps of this courthouse and going to jail for the rest of my life.
You're like, sorry.
Dude,
Sorry.
you know what I said to him? I go, hang on one sec, dude. And I took like 3 steps away from him, and I prayed. I don't know what the hell I prayed, but I prayed something.
Your wife.
Yeah. And then I turned back around. I'm like, you know, and I started to make the whole amends process to him, and he was pissed, and he asked very specific questions, and I answered those very specific questions, and you know, he ended up calming down, and he said he was looking at, you know, going away for at least like a year or something, or 10 months, and he's like, dude, you know, I'm still junked out. I got dope in my pocket right now, and I'm going to do it before I go away, and, you know, I'm probably going to go to jail right after this court. And I'm like, dude, I go, you know, I'll always love you, you know. I said, when you get out, come by the DQ and see me. So it was pretty cool.
Yeah.
It was pretty.
Well, and
pretty
you know what's
cool
cool is that guy's
experience.
sober today.
Oh my God,
You
he's
know?
crushing. Yeah, he's
and
in this line of work.
He's probably, you know, been instrumental in saving over, you know, thousands of people's lives.
Absolutely,
You know?
without a doubt. Yeah.
So, you know, good thing you made that amends. Or
Yeah, if you're watching, dude, I'll kick your ass. But yeah, you know, God puts people in front of you, and this was always my thing, right? If I forgot someone was on my amends list, or I had, you know, people on my amends list, and then I happened to bump into them, should I make the amends? Should I wait?
Yeah, when's the right time to do that?
When God puts those people in
Hold
front
on,
of you,
I have to call my sponsor.
exactly. No, but when God puts those people in front of you,
You do
in
it.
a random situation,
Yeah,
you got to do it.
take-
Well, and
take it
I
to the
think that's like
opportunity.
a hallmark of living a spiritual life, right? Regardless of whether you're in the step process or not. Is that,
Sure.
like, if I've wronged people and they are in front of me, I should seek to make that right. you know?
Always, always.
It's terrifying.
Yeah.
Especially being like honest for once in your
and
life.
it's interesting, right? Because we make in the step process, you make an amends list, right? And like, there's definitely ones that you think are scariest, right? But
Yeah.
like, each amends when you're making it is the scariest amends that you've ever made.
Yeah.
You know what I
Every
mean?
time.
Like, every single time.
Yeah, it doesn't get like easier.
No, unless you like go out and make like 8 in a day.
I made one to my friend, and he said, "Will you please stop doing this? You are making me so uncomfortable." And I was like, "Yeah, man." He's like, "It's fine. You're
Was it
weird."
Dave?
No, he was cool about it.
Oh, okay. You're like, oh shit, I owe him one.
Already did it, bud.
Fusion Blue.
Yeah, so
Check it out, bottom corner of the screen.
Yeah, Fusion Blue Productions.
So we're at like 45 minutes right now.
Okay.
3?
I think we're going for 3.
Will you come back again?
Maybe not next week. You can check your schedule.
No, dog, I'm down. You guys know that.
I would love that.
I want to hear about you getting into the treatment industry. I want to hear about your family life, like what it looks like being like a man in long-term recovery, having like a wife and kids. Like, because I think, that in particular is something that like, at least myself getting sober, like I have that today, but like, I didn't necessarily think that was possible for me in getting sober, the idea of going out on a date and not having a drink. Like, what's that going to be like? Like all those sort of questions. And I think that like your wealth of experience in that arena would be really valuable to some of our listeners.
Absolutely. I want to talk about how I keep just getting thrown in your life, unfortunately, for you.
Well, that's because you're selfish. That's why you want to talk about it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, we want to make it about him.
Yes, please. By any means necessary.
You'll come back next week?
Sure.
All
I'd
right.
be honored.
Cool.
Can you bring that cheese?
Yeah.
That's not happening.
Plate of cheese.
Just
Not
chewing
happening, dude.
I got cheese on the mic. I'm sorry, dude. I don't know how. Do we melt it off?
It smells like cheese. But thank you to our listeners.
Thanks.
Thank you to Fusion
pleasure.
Blue.
Thank
Thank you
you,
to
guys.
Med Addiction Treatment for sponsoring this podcast.
Yep.
Have a good night.
Rock and roll.